Good morning, SuperTube. I've been making a 3D first-person survival horror game in RPG Maker. Today, I'm going to put together a video covering all of the basics, including how I got the 3D camera angle, why I'm using RPG Maker, why not to use RPG Maker, and creating some of the first environments, the first enemies, and the first puzzles for the game. I'm structuring this into chapters, and there'll be timestamps below, so you can skip to the part that might interest you the most. This video essentially will document my first month of development on this project, taking it from the bare bones up to the first playable beta. If this crazy project takes your interest, then please do like and subscribe to the channel. I have this crazy novel idea of making a first-person 3D horror game in RPG Maker. Now obviously this is not what RPG Maker is designed to do, so I'm pushing it out of its comfort zone and outside of its normal limitations to create this strange novel idea. Today I want to answer the first of that question, which is the how. Okay, so first things first, I'm using this plugin by Qt virus called MV3D. You can find it very easily. I'll put a link in the description for this video for how I got that. But basically, here's the documentation for it, and I'll put a link to that as well. So first things first, I'm going to basically show you how this project looks with the plugin switched off, and of course it's just a basic, it looks awful to be honest. But yeah, you'll see why in a minute. But yeah, so this is just to show you that this is RPG Maker running in its standard with the art thing switched off. Now, switching on the plugin and just going into the maps and note tags here, this is how it works to achieve the 3D angle. So firstly, here's the notes. You do an angle bracket of MV3D, and then in there we have camera, and these parameters essentially, they give you a 90-degree viewing angle there, so we've got 90, a distance of 0, which puts it literally on top of the player, and a height of 1. Again, these are all like editable by, however you want to do it. The ceiling bit there as well is, it just creates the ceiling. So reading through the documentation here, like there's a lot of different things that this can do. But I'm going to show you a few little tricks that I've found myself and how I've been using them to create different camera angles and effects. So that's the first one. That's how we create the actual first person angle, and that's a default. As long as we put that into the note tag for the maps note tags in RPG Maker, then this is what it will do. Yep, camera angle and the ceiling there. Next, I'm going to show you. Next, I'm going to show you these the tags on this little creature here, this little weird like squirmy wormy thing. Scale, change the scale of it. I've done this because it essentially lets me get a higher resolution on the thing. And then you've also got on this one the yaw, which gives it an angle, and the offset. The shape there actually it's quite important as well. That creates different shapes. Wall creates a standing up. Like sort of flat billboard type texture. And here we go. This is how it all comes together. Ignore the little foot table there because that's placeholder graphic. That's 90% of this is placeholder graphics, except for the little weird wormy guys. Not sure, but I'll probably keep those in because I actually quite like the weird animation on those. But yeah, you can see like they're different scales, different shapes and sizes, different like angles. Okay, so here's something else. Right, so using a plugin command here, you can alter the camera's pitch to 45 degrees, I'll put for this one. Then it opens the save screen and then corrects the pitch back to 90 degrees. So when we put that in to the actual program, we'll see how this works. You activate that event and it pitches the camera downwards, calls the save screen, and then pitches back up again to 90 degrees. So that's something I'm going to use to basically show using devices. Now here's another one. So this one, CCTV viewer on, so it switches on the thing, and then you also see here another thing, which is basically the yaw, which is basically left and right panning of the camera. So you'll see how that activates. We activate the device that requires power to operate, so the switch needs to be on. So I'm going to basically just switch on that using the debug menu, and then this is with the thing, it switches pans left, pans right, and that's with a little delay of 120 frames, which is about 5 seconds. But anyway, that's not important. Here's another angle. You can see the camera pans left, pans right. Yep. And one more scene. So this is basically done through map transfers. There's an invisible text box at the bottom. Basically, it's a text box with like no background and no text in it. And that basically, it sort of like holds the event so that the player needs to push enter to move on to the next one. And pans F, pans right. So my idea there is that's going to be essentially like viewing through a CCTV camera. And that will be part of a puzzle in the game. Obviously, still a long way to go, but I wanted to show that a few mechanics here are coming along. So it's a beautiful day here in England, and I've taken a little walk out. If you've seen my previous videos again, you'll have seen that I've been working on a 3D first-person horror game in RPG Maker. In my last video, I spoke about how I've been doing that and accomplishing that effect. So today, I want to talk about why I'm using RPG Maker. A lot of people would say it's not the best engine for my purposes, but I want to go over a couple of ideas about why I want to use it. If you want more of a general rundown of the pros and cons of using RPG Maker, that's not really what this video is about. But I'm going to say why I'm using it personally and why I think it's the best engine for my purposes. Guys, I haven't put one of these in my videos yet, but I want to say if you do enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe. It really will inspire me to carry on and make more content for you guys. Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I want to talk about there's a lot of built-in systems in RPG Maker that mean I don't have to code these things for myself. Things like the save and load systems. Basically, the structure of a game. If I'm looking to make an exploration-focused type of adventure game, not necessarily something that requires a lot of action or anything like that, the engine seems to work perfectly for making my own game. It's always been a dream of mine ever since I was a little kid. It's been a long time, and I still haven't made an actual game. But RPG Maker is by far the closest I've gotten to doing it. Really, it's the ease of use and the accessibility. I use the eventing system. It's a very visual system that segregates all of my work and means that I can pick up and jump into any little bits of my project. So that'll be the first point. It's to do with the accessibility and ease of use of the engine. Now, in addition to say why specifically it works for me, is because, well, the type of game that I've always wanted to make would be a horror game or something quirky and weird. I really want to show off art as being the primary, the main thing of it, rather than it being some kind of, mechanically focused game, let's say. My main inspirations here are Resident Evil, Silent Hill, all those PS1 era games. And the thing is, at this point, I would agree that RPG Maker is still not the best engine. And, well, that leads me on to the 3D side of things. So it was when I saw that the 3D plugin had the potential to get a first-person angle. And, well, I figured from the screenshots, I thought if I could just replace some of the textures and objects, I could make, essentially, any type of first-person game using this, right? I want to work on my own because I want to keep, firstly, I want to keep things consistent, but I really want the idea of this to be my passion project, my baby. Given the speed that I can work in RPG Maker, the intuitive design means that as a solo developer, you can get your game off the ground without getting overwhelmed by technicalities. For example, setting up triggers for jump scares, creating enemy AI, resource management, anything to do with health, puzzles. It all comes without writing a single line of code. As a solo developer, time is the most precious resource. RPG Maker's user-friendly interface allows me to build my prototypes fast, put together a demo, make something playable in the matter of hours rather than it being weeks or months. And I work full-time and I've got 3 children, so again, time is my absolute most precious resource. And it means I can spend more time focusing on the things that I believe truly matter, the art, the music, and polishing things up, just creating the best experience that I can, the most unique thing for me. Designing puzzles, everything is streamlined to move forward fast, without compromising on the quality of the experience. The next thing I want to talk about, which I touched on when I was speaking about the plugins, is the community support. RPG Maker has a huge community that's been very active, and the subreddit is such a friendly, welcoming place. The forums that I've been on, I've been able to share everything from assets to, just everything. So I'm still not sure if I'm necessarily getting into the why specifically. It might just be that RPG Maker is what I've got the most experience with, it's what I feel the most comfortable with. But also, from my experience using plugins and the community, I've found that any problem I've had with RPG Maker is very easy to resolve. Any idea that I've had, I've been able to implement very quickly. And while I'm very aware of the limitations of the engine, mainly it's to do with, action. The grid-based movement system is a bit of a limitation there. For something, again, focused more on survival horror, where it's about resource management and exploration and puzzle solving, I really think RPG Maker is by far the best engine for my purposes. Today, I want to play devil's advocate with myself and talk about why not to use RPG Maker, and talk about all of the downsides to using RPG Maker and why it may not be the best engine for my purposes. At the end of the day, the conclusion I'll come to, of course, is that I am still going to use RPG Maker, but I think it would be interesting to talk about the limitations and how I'll be working within those to create the best experience that I can. RPG Maker is an engine which is designed to create 2D role-playing games with ease, but what happens when you try to make a 3D horror game, taking it out of its comfort zone? Today I'm going to talk about a lot of the cons that I'm facing. Quite a strange, novel idea. Firstly, RPG Maker is specifically designed for 2D games. The interface is streamlined and designed for creating tile-based maps, turn-based combat, and classic RPG storytelling. It's beginner-friendly and perfect for making 2D games, but when you want to create a 3D horror game, the engine does show some serious limitations. One of the biggest issues of using RPG Maker for a 3D horror game is that it's fundamentally a 2D engine. Sure, the plugin allows for 3D features, but they can be limited and a little bit clunky and not optimized as much as a dedicated 3D engine. In a 3D horror game, the world around you has to feel immersive with depth, lighting, and intricate details, but RPG Maker was never built for that. And no matter how hard I try to force the 3D elements onto it, the results can often look jarring and unpolished. Now, the reason I don't think this is necessarily going to hold me back is because for creating a horror game, I think having this uncanny quirkiness will actually prove to be a benefit, especially in this day and age of AI-generated art, just general slot content. I think having this passion project, which is very clearly my own, work. Maybe it's a cope for me, but I do believe it makes something a little bit more unique. Now, moving on to the next issue, the main thing I see is to do with collision. So this is something that's actually been limiting me quite a bit. And it's because I have to work around, because RPG Maker's collision systems were not designed for any kind of action combat or anything particularly fast-paced. They're more designed to be used as like triggers for cutscenes and things like that. However, using variables to track the player's position and monitoring positions of enemies or potentially projectiles, I can work around this. However, the grid-based system will still ultimately mean that any kind of collision is determined based on that grid-based format, so everything snaps to a position on a grid. The reason I don't think this is going to hold me back too much is because I can work around this with the game's design and essentially create a first-person sort of dungeon crawler perspective where the character turns on 90-degree angles. This gives a close perspective on objects. Following on from that, I have seen a lot of people talk about the limitations on the aspect ratio and on the resolution of images. However, as part of the 3D plugin, there is a scale command which allows me to use events and characters which are much bigger than the usual RPG Maker format and simply scale them down in gameplay, and this way I'm able to create much more detailed objects. So let's talk about performance. RPG Maker isn't optimized to handle complex 3D scenes. It would struggle with handling 3D objects and lighting effect. The way I'm working around this is by using essentially 2D textures and objects, but without the use of actual 3D objects. So there are no literal 3D objects, it's more sort of like Paper Mario or Mode 7 on the SNES. So while more professional engines like Unity or Unreal would certainly create a more polished look, and the fact that so many people already use those engines to create those types of games, I think trying something unique and probably a little bit wrong is actually something that could create something truly memorable, for me anyway. Probably another major drawback to using RPG Maker is essentially the perception that it has in the indie game community. RPG Maker, for better or worse, is seen as a childish, baby's first game engine, essentially. Pretty much one level above Scratch. Having said that, a lot of very popular games over the last few years have been developed in the engine, going all the way back to Yume Nikki in the early 2000s, and more recently games like Omori, which shows that the engine absolutely has the potential to make popular games. I haven't seen any finished games using the 3D plugin. However, for the sort of game that I'm making, I do believe I'm keeping the scope relatively managed, and this will allow me to create something quite unique, fits within the limitations of RPG Maker. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope I've gone some way into explaining why I'm using the RPG Maker engine to create this game. If you want to support me, I've recently launched a Patreon, and anyone who signs up before the 23rd of April will be given the opportunity to include their personal message in my game.
Oh, morning Gloop Tube. What are you doing in there? Here's what I'm going to do today. My wife and kids have left for school and work respectively, other way around, and I want to go through a little bit of my game dev journey, and I want to share this with you guys. So I'm thinking today I'm going to show you what to work on as the day progresses. So it's first thing in the morning, having my cup of tea, and the next step is going to be figuring out what I'm going to do. I'm working on a survival horror game, a first person thing that I'm working on in RPG Maker. I'm going to put that up on the screen in a bit. You'll see what that is, probably up in a corner or something, do a little picture-in-picture thing. What I want to do today is that I want to create the next area of the game, which is a train station essentially. I'm not going to do the platforms. I think the next bit I'm going to do will be the lobby. So what I'm going to do is I'll cut to my next step, which will be on the screen in a minute. So, welcome to my office. This is where the magic happens, as it were. It's going to be kind of tricky to see my little drawing station here, but I will try and show you some stuff on the screen as well, which is right in front of me. So, first things first, I'm going to do a little bit of reference image searching. How will I show you this? I'm going to save some images as I go, and they will be coming up on screen as we go. We'll have them. I think I'll be okay to use them on screen for like just a flash for reference, because I'm not actually using these in anything. What I'm using these for is, again, reference. So I'll show you in a second what I'm going to do. Again, we'll work from there. So let's get my images on up. First things first, we're going to start with the tiling, which is going to be the floors and the walls and stuff. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to do some pencil drawing. I'll probably have to cut the next bit out because, to be honest, you're not going to be able to see anything that I'm drawing down here anyway. But I'll cut now ahead to where I've done a bunch of drawings. Right, so just start off with, this is going to look quite janky, but I've got some, can't really see it very well there, but floor and wall tiles, and I'm going to use this, that'll be a wall hanging or a rug or something. Anyway, I'm going to keep this very brief because I want to cut ahead because the next step will make it look better. So, if anyone watched my previous video, you'll see how I do this a bit, but basically I've cut these little bits into, well, I made little squares where I can now copy this into Photoshop, colorize, remove like any little bits that are a bit too janky. I like the jank, but not, too much jank. And then what I do is I'll get like a layer with opacity, and then basically give it this texturizing with, on this one I did a bit of basically just some black in like a scribbly, just to give it some more texture. I create 4 floor tiles here and then paste them onto the tile set that then gets imported into RPG Maker. Again, it looks super janky. I know it looks super janky. This is my just sort of process at the moment. It's again not ideal, obviously, but it works for me. And at least for like this little game I'm working on, this is what I'm gonna do until I have something finished, and then who knows? Maybe I'll change how I work in the future. But yeah, so I've made quite a few tiles here, but like this is like it's kind of a slow process in some ways, and it works for me. So once I've done the floors and the walls, I'll then basically compile the tile set and build up the room. I had already designed essentially the layout of the room that I'm going to use. So we're starting off with the floors and the walls, definitely, and then we'll add in the objects, the clocks and TV screens and consoles and that kind of thing. It turns out the structure of the gameplay is actually fairly well already designed. It's actually aesthetics that I'm working on now, and yeah, so nearly done the 4 floor tiles here. I'm going to cut out making the walls and other things and skip straight ahead now to like just showing you how it all comes together. So what I do is I'll fill in the rooms. You can see here that I've already designed essentially the layout of the lobby area, just filling in all these areas with the floor I just made, and then I'm going to cut ahead to once I've added in the walls and a few more objects and stuff. So yeah, here we go. So we'll play test and have a little look around at what we've got here. Here's what I've made. Right, so these TV screens are animated essentially using just a few different sprites where the static the noise just like rotates essentially, and that's what creates that effect. We've also got the lights on the ceiling. I've removed the doors of this for the minute because there are locks, and yeah, it's fine. They'll be in the actual finished thing, obviously. And that is basically the work I've done so far this morning. We're coming up to about midday now. So I've still got a few more hours before the wife and kids get home, and we'll see if I can add in anything else today. But I would consider this a pretty productive day so far in terms of game dev. And thank you very much for staying with me so far. Let's see if there's anything else. Well, I'm out in the shed now, and the reason I'm out here is because sometimes I like to take my drawing stuff just outside, so I can basically just get a different vibe for my artistic, surroundings. And I feel like, sometimes that lets you just create things a little bit differently. I just want to create 2 more things for the lobby scene, and that's going to be a ticket machine and like a shutter, just for background purposes. And then I think I'll be calling it a day for today. But yeah, that's going to be what I'm going to do out here, and then I'm going to cut ahead to where I'll have implemented that into the game. So I've drawn those things. I've drawn a little ticket machine and some graffiti, and also this shutter I was talking about. And now I'm going to put that onto the Mac and edit that so it can be put into the game next. Back up here in the office again, and what I want to show you first is did you see those videos of the AI erosion birds? I think they're little weird things. I've drawn one here that I think I'm going to try and put this thing in at some point. There's another monster there as well. Also have a few other drawings and things. This one got a bit screwed up by my son, but I've already put a lot of these tiles in there. Got some more weird drawings. Again, I'm going for this weird sort of cartoony style. But you might have seen a lot of the tiles in that last section. They came from this sheet here. So that's kind of something I would do over more time. So the next bit is going to be putting in those, the things I've drawn in the last little drawing session. Going to go into the game now. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to try and implement this ticket machine that I've made. So I'm speeding this footage up a lot because there was a lot of trial and error to get this to work correctly. Because I have made a sort of quasi 3D object before using this sort of pop-up cardboard style. Essentially, it's made up of a 2D object that's it stands up differently on 3 different sides. But as you can see, if you look closely, the things don't line up well. So there's a lot of trial and error just to adjust these numbers, which is just this X and Y offset of the coordinates for the object, which then just brings them closer together slowly, just to correct how it should look. So eventually I was able to get that to a point where I'm happy with it. But again, I'm not sure how much I'll use this style because it is very, very, very janky. And I know I've said that word about 1 million times already, and even just in this one video. But yeah, now happy with the look of that now, and then the footage will slow down a bit now, and we'll go for a play test of everything that I've done so far. Now, this is quite a lot of work for one day, I think. You can see here I've done those big banners, there's some stairs, some graffiti on the side there, and then through to this area. I moved the ticket machine into this main lobby area. You've got the animated screens. We're going to check out the shutter at the back there in a second. Still even more work to do. That is the default RPG Maker tile one, that back there, the blue one, that I'm going to have to replace that for that second level to the lobby. So this is still, far from finished, but it's a lot of progress compared to where it was. I'm going to check out a couple of the other objects that I've added in now as well. Again, we have seen that weird ticket machine thing from a different angle. Just noticed that might need to be resized again a little bit. I'm not sure if I'll keep this stuff. Again, it's parts of it are for testing purposes, but again, I've said it a few times, but I like the jankiness, the weirdness. I think, once I put in some creepy music and, some more gameplay stuff, this will definitely make it feel quite creepy. At the moment, I don't know if that's coming across just from, what I've put up here so far, but yeah, that's the sort of aesthetic that I'm going for. We'll end this off by, we'll check out this little room here as well first. A couple more objects. And then we'll head into show you how the room transitions work as I walk out into what will be the platforms, which will be just down this little bit here. Again, I've removed the doors, but the doors will be put back on, obviously. It's because there are locks and keys and all that kind of stuff. But this is essentially the bare bones of what the train platform will look like. You can see I need to do lots of textures and tiling and all that kind of stuff, like objects and that. And there's some kind of creature moving around in the background there. If you want to get a little small glimpse there of what the monsters might look like. Not, well, they're placeholders, obviously, with my face on a weird little body. But, yeah. And that will be that for
Morning,
today.
Spooks Tube. Today I want to take you through creating the custom menu for my survival horror game made in RPG Maker. Today's video might be a little bit longer than the last couple. The process I'm going to take you through is using GAMP, which is a free Photoshop, to turn my pencil sketches into fully playable asset in the game. Fully customized menu with options and everything. As always on YouTube, if you want to help me here, the best thing you can do is like, subscribe, comment, give me feedback, and that will definitely help support me in the future. We'll start off with this pencil sketch of the menu that I've done, obviously on paper and pencil, and I imported that to GIMP and cut around the edges to create a transparency. You can also see there that it will elements of the menu that I've done here. So removing the background, and then I separate this layer here because this is going to be the icons that essentially will highlight and you can click on. Colorize that to make it a metallic color. Separate the options menu there as well, so give that its own little colour, and then like some more highlights here, darken that bit there. I will also use green on another layer here with the pen tool just to highlight around these letters and numbers. Then reduce the opacity on that to make it so that the colour it looks a bit like it's sort of glowing, like it sits on top. A couple more highlights there, create this little window for the vitals thing, which will be the heads up display for the character's life, essentially. That's inspired by the Resident Evil, fine, caution, danger system that you have to pause the game to see. You see here we've got the OK, caution, danger. I'm aware I spelled caution wrong there, which I will correct pretty soon. So we're going to create these layers. So first we start off with that. So the first layer I create here is just OK. So this screen here, literally isolate that, and using layers, we create a new layer there. Copy that onto there, same kind of thing. Swap in the U and the A around here. Probably would have been quicker just to rewrite it, but I quite like the sort of cartoony element of it being, overlapped like that. So removing all the little bits, trimming it down, and then colorizing it to make it a bit orange. And we export that. So create a third layer, which is just the danger sign. So each of these elements is saved as a separate picture. They're actually very small images because it's literally just that with nothing else. Let me export that. I'd basically already created placeholder graphics for all of this originally. And those placeholder graphics now, I'm basically just replacing them one at a time, because basically what I did was I created the menu, made sure everything worked, and now I'm replacing all of the art with the, more polished art, I guess. Trying out something here, just a black sort of shadow thing. I decided it doesn't really work, and I ended up just filling it, that whole section in with black there. So this bit here is going to be the healing item. So we've got the medkit type thing here, and we're going to have like a display that shows you. This will change based on, a variable in the game to show you the stock of healing items. I was just looking at the colours here and realising that I don't like the sort of pinky colour there, so I'm going to change it to make it black. And I've created 3 different images again that will show a different one based on the stock of how many healing items the character has saved, which is 0, 1, 2, or 3, with 3 being the maximum. These would sort of function like your green herbs in Resident Evil or your health drinks in Silent Hill, just to restore your health by 1 stage. And again, this is a resource management side of things. This is where I believe making it survival horror will come into it, because the next step here, this next section, I call this the repeller, which is this is essentially the weapon of the game. It's not really a weapon because you can't, at the moment, there's no way to kill any enemies, but what this can do is essentially make them run away from you. And it uses the same, stock sort of thing, 0 to 3. So I create that, colorize, make another layer there with like this black texture over it. And use the same technique of creating an opaque layer and little purple squiggles there to create this like mystical, and just turn that up a bit to, make it stand out a bit. So again, 4 layers of that, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And again, when the game draws the menu, there'll be a conditional branch which essentially checks the variable, and it just draws whichever image it needs to based on the current stock. So this is going to be the items, the inventory. I ended up basically
colorizing this in a way that gets rid of those letters in the corner, and I quite like the way it turns out. Again, it's that kind of cartoony, janky, sort of style, but it's my, personal touch, I believe. And again, same thing, removing the layers, creating different layers. The key is its own layer, and the bag is another layer, and exporting that as the image. And then we've got one more left here, which is the map. I did something a little bit different here, which was basically I tried to essentially, I wanted to draw over these with the green pencil, which I'll do in a second. See that? That looks okay, but then I did these lines here, and I wasn't really a fan of this. So what I would do is just undo all of that and just keep that as it is. Export, and then for the last menu here, we have the options menu, which is just one last button there. Just create another layer for that and export that. And now, basically, when I run the game, everything comes together instantly, like that. So the way this works is through common events with a parallel process that essentially has it waits for the input of left and right controls the highlighted option, and then it waits for an OK to choose. So you've got 4 different options there. Let's go try it. So healing items, the repeller, the inventory, which it brings up the inventory, and the map screen, there's maps and options as well. So just gonna cut ahead a little bit, gonna change the scenario so I can basically test out the healing items, repeller, and that kind of thing. So basically what I'm going to do is just remove these test monsters that I've put in here so that I can make one that will actually, do damage to the player. And this is, again, using the built-in RPG Maker's HP system. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, but it's the way that I'm doing it. So it essentially just reduces HP by 20. We're not going to allow knockout on this just for the time being, but allow knockout will let it basically kill the player. So just for testing purposes, I'm leaving that switched off for now. And I've created an event here that can basically allow you to pick up some healing items and the repeller. You have to ignore some of the placeholder graphics here, but this is essentially how it will work in the game. So we have 3 different resources. Well, the 3 different resources. The resources here will be the healing item, the repeller, your maps. There's also bombs and a few other things, but they all go under key items. There we go. So you can see the healing item thing, and the vitals in top has gone to caution now because it's been hit twice, and it gets hit again. Still caution, just wait for him to get hit, and then boom, still caution. One more hit should bring it to danger. Yeah, danger. So now what we'll do is this little event here. We'll just found one healing item. See there, 1, 2, and one more. It's going to collect it. Yep. And then on the menu we see 3, and now you can use those. Can't carry anymore because 3 is the maximum. And this is the one that holds the repeller item, which is what will make the enemy run away. So we'll use the healing item first. See, danger will go up to caution. We'll use it again, and then one more should bring you up to okay. Yep. And then we have the repeller item, which will make the enemy run away from the player, and off he goes. So yeah, that's how that all works. We'll also have the key items here. Key items go in there. You can see the repeller. It should be on 2 now, but that's something I'll fix at a later date. The map option and the options menu there, which will give you a bunch of different settings for the game. So that's how I've created this Resident Evil inspired menu for my game. If you liked this, please remember subscribe, give me comments, let me know some feedback. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Evening, Screwtooth. I've been making a first-person survival horror game in RPG Maker, and today I want to go through the process of making a spooky apartment and loads of 3D objects that are going to go in there. You'll see up in the corner the results of what I've done today. I'm recording this before actually doing the actual work. I have a couple of ideas about things I want to try out today. 2 ideas I've got is, one is to make a wheelchair that's sort of at an angle, tilted up against the wall. I'm going to cut ahead now to jumping into Photoshop, where I'll be cutting out the objects, and then from there I'll go into RPG Maker and I'll set everything up and we'll carry on. For the first part of this, I'm going to be playing this at 8 times speed back, because this actually took me about an hour or so to do all of this on Photoshop. But what you can see is I have these drawings, I've got the objects there, and I'm basically cutting and pasting them into Photoshop here. It's a GIMP, which, by the way, I'm not sure if that's how you're meant to say it, but I've been saying GIMP because I don't want to say that word without initializing it, just in case, I don't know, YouTube has some weird thing about that word, because it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But yeah, so this is going to be the wallpaper for the apartment room that I'm doing here. I've also done, you can see there, a few other objects, but we start off with this, colorizing them all by layers. Moving on next, we just paste it into the tile set here, and then layer those up to try and make them line up as much as possible. And those are going to be the walls for the apartment. Next, I'm going to do these objects. These are like light bulbs that will be hanging from the ceiling. Again, separating each part into different layers and colorizing that, and creating another layer to give it a little bit of an opaque highlight there, just to make it look a bit more 3D. And then another light here with like a lampshade on it. This one we had a tiny bit of color to it, a bit of a blue tinge in like a higher layer here, just a very small amount. And again, these are going to be light sources which are hanging from the ceiling. Next, we have the wheelchair. So I'll start off by going all the way around, cutting out all the shape of it, and then what we'll do is cut out the wheel itself and make that another layer. This one was a little bit more sort of meticulous because there's all these little details here. So my idea here is to have this object sort of sitting at an angle, propped against a wall, and then we colorize the wheel to make it look more sort of like metallic, and then we have highlights and stuff as I've done with all the other objects. Again, every horror game's got to have some creepy wheelchairs. We move on now to Home Sweet Home, this little like sort of tapestry embroidery sort of thing. Again, colorize, working with like different textures, more layers of the opacity, that little highlight on there. So you see, I'm using the whole bottom row here of the character sheet. So all of these objects actually only go onto one image file. So file size wise, and when it comes to loading and lag and that kind of stuff, I think this is actually not going to affect, like, including this much art is not actually going to be a detriment. We have this sort of, I've made a like blood splattered wardrobe thing, colorized the handles to yellow, a little bit of a shadow work to make the 3D effect look a little bit better. Next object, which will be this clock. Clock went all the way around again. Cut out the object. Remove the transparency. I think I ran it twice there because I made a mistake. Colorize it to brown, and then we take the face of the clock and then make that sort of a grey-white colour. And again, as I did with the other drops, I've sort of gone for this like, like that sort of shimmer, sort of looks like a reflection of light on the parts that might be made out of glass. So this is the bed. So the way I'm going to do this is like separate this into two objects. So we've got the top of the bed, the mattress, and then the sort of headboard part of it. Like sort of like mouldy texture that I added by using a like weird paintbrush and then erasing lots of it, doing the yellowy colour to make it look really dirty and like gross. And then here's the headboard, or like the footboard of the bed, which will be a second object. Again, cutting that out, transparency, little texturizing of details, and then we just polish it up a tiny bit, and then import that back to the character sheet. I'm doing quite a lot of objects today. This one is a coat rack. My idea with this one would be that it sort of like uses something similar to the tree type objects that I've done before, where it would be what's called an 8-cross, which is basically it's an intersection of like a 2D image that's like propped up. So like like a paper like standout type thing. This is a rug that will go on the floor in the apartment area. Again, we colorize it to be sort of an orangey because it's meant to be kind of like a lion type thing. It doesn't look like a lion, but and then make it look gross and dirty. And then these little console device type things. Again, I think these are great for like just general scenery. They're quite easy to draw and colorize, in my opinion. But I like how they add to the scene. Sort of makes it reminds you that this is not like a nice place to live. Well, I mean, I'm not sure it isn't anyway, but something about these like utilitarian, like, I don't know, brutalist architecture, I guess, would be the way to describe it. And then, yep, so we take that and then back into the character sheet for RPG Maker. And then we have this one, which is sort of a TV, like a CRT TV looking thing. Colorized to brown for like a woody texture.
screen darkened, and then these little like highlights again for like reflections of like in the glass, and then some more texture for the woody areas. And one last piece here, which is this sort of like bar shelf type thing, which I want to include. Just nothing too special there. It's just gonna sort of hover and be like a sort of table type thing. I basically thought, what kind of things might you find in an apartment that's been abandoned for a while? And I realised like it would be like the bones left over of the furniture, just whatever's left behind. If you're enjoying this, please like, comment, subscribe, give me any kind of feedback. It will really help out. And yeah, thank you. Okay, so here we are in RPG Maker. So the first thing I've done is I've replaced all the tiles and the walls with the floor texture and the wallpaper texture that I've done. I've also added in a lot of the objects already, just so I can show you guys where I'm at before I start doing any of the more complicated objects. So the ones I've put in so far are basically, they're all like wall coverings and some of the light fixtures and some things on the floor. But also this stuff was the easier stuff to add in. I know it's a bit too dark at the moment. I need to add in some more light sources. We'll get to that in a minute. But here you go, you can see I've done the floor, the consoles on the walls, the wardrobe thing, the lights hanging. Yep. So that's a lot of the objects been added in already. Okay, back in RPG Maker again. So here we go. We're going to start off by first I'm going to copy in this bench object that I made in the lobby scene. I haven't shown that yet, but on the channel, but that's something I did off camera. I'm going to use that as the building blocks to make the bed object, just because I believe it's going to be pretty similar. So I'm going to use the surface here is going to be the mattress, which has a bit of an elevation. This is all done through the note tags to alter the elevation, the shape of the object. And there we go. Yep, so with the bed, you can see the footrest part of it is way too small, so I need to alter the size of that. That's done through the scale tag on the thing, on the in the event, it's scale, and then in brackets we changed the decimal point there to make it a little bit bigger. Next object I'm going to be working on here is the shelf on the wall. Similar thing there, basically just using the surface, which is it's just a flat object with a slight elevation, which basically just creates that sort of bar table type thing there. And then we add in these little extra things just for the collision, which is probably not the best way to do it. Again, that's something I'm going to have to work on in a bit. But I'm quite happy with the way it looks at the moment, so I'll move on to the next object in a second, which is going to be the wheelchair. And the way that I'm going to do that is basically I'm going to copy it over this sort of, just a little run backwards and forwards first, a little see where we're at. Again, sorry about my rambling commentary here, because I'm just getting used to this YouTubing thing. But there we go. So with the note tags for the event, I've created this wheelchair, and it's set at an angle diagonally. I'm also going to copy in a few more sources of light and add on a few lamp tags, which will illuminate a lot more of the objects. And here we go. This is going to be like the final playthrough to have a little look at what we've made today. So we have the shelf, the wheelchair, that painting at the back. A little closer look at the wallpaper texture on the floor. We have the lamps hanging from the ceiling, of course. This coat rack type thing. Tapestry with the home sweet home. And then moving into the back half of this abandoned apartment, we have the bed with its footboard, little bench at the end, table, the wardrobe, and the consoles, little screens, and of course the rug. Also added in some more light sources, as I mentioned. I'm just all look around and see what I think will be the best angle, just to get one last look around at what we've done today. Yeah, I think this is pretty decent progress for one day's work again. Thank you. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will have more for you soon. I'm also doing obviously music uploads, all that kind of stuff. This channel is not really, I'm not sure what kind of niche they call it on YouTube, But yeah, I'd like to think I've got multiple niches. Essentially, it's going to be pretty much this. It's music or this. That's the way I would narrow it down. But hopefully, like, a lot of you guys will be interested in both things, so I won't be annoying too many people with if you're subscribing for RPG Maker content and seeing, chiptune remixes or vice versa. But yeah, thank you very much.
I'm going to show you a little behind the scenes peek at how I've been creating a lot of the art for the game I've been working on. So what you'll be seeing here is a little bit of a sped up video of how I essentially create the artwork. I'm just going to be working with one frame here, just with this little creature that I've drawn. It's this little pencil sketch of this little snake monster. The first thing I've done is I've basically just taken the image, the pencil drawing, and I've taken it into GIMP, it's basically Photoshop, and then I go around the edges of each line. This is so I can remove the background, and then what I'll do afterwards is colorize it one step at a time. The reason I do this is basically it's so that I can get some cleaner colours, and I like the sort of janky art style of having like uneven edges and those little like quirks and inconsistencies, little mistakes that come from doing things by hand rather than well, that's my excuse anyway. That can be my cope of my art skills essentially. So yeah, I'll do that, like click around one step at a time. As carefully as I can, but again, like all the little imperfections are where I believe the art style comes from. Once we've done that, clicked all the way around, nearly there. This is going to be like a sort of monster, I believe, like a little creature that you'll have to either run away from or something. And there we go. So I take that, cut it, paste it to a new layer, and remove the old layer. And now we have this with a transparency behind it. Next thing I'll do is, like, for some of the highlighted features, like this eye here, I'll go around the eye and then create that, paste it to a new layer, and then colorify that. I think like a sort of like decayed yellowy sort of color works for that. And then this little bit underneath the eye as well. So I cut that out, paste that, and then move that down one layer so it's just below the eye, and then colorify that, sort of a reddy pink color, I think works for that. And then the mouth with these like stitches, I'm going to go around the edges of that and then cut all of that out and paste it to a new layer on top of what I'm doing there. Yep, nearly there. Just click all the way around, and that is how I do that step. Now what I'll do next is colorify the whole of the body of the creature. Just going to go for a generic or greeny snake color here. Now the next step what I do is create a new layer on top of that, grab a pen with a different shade of green and a sort of scratchy type brush here, and essentially just like give it a little bit of a highlight, like a feature on one side. Then I'll make that, reduce the opacity on that so it's sort of see-through and creates like a layer. Just fiddling with the numbers here to make it look a bit more organic rather than, like it's just been scribbled on. Yep, and then the next step after that, what I will do is essentially move into colorizing the sort of hair bit here with another layer of black. I'll make this reduce the opacity on this afterwards as well so it's see-through and the color bleeds through. And also use this for shading essentially on the next step, and a little bit of we'll make a yellow there for these little highlights on that little bit of color on the tail there. Yeah, make that all opaque, and then we grab we'll go back to the so I'll use the eraser tool now to sort of clean all this up using like a little bit of trial and error, just different shapes and sizes of the eraser tool to, I'm just playing around with it at the moment, but once I find what I think works, just scratching that down and like sort of sculpting it down a little bit to the point where I believe, it looks good for what I want it for. Yep, just in between each like strand of hair there essentially. And then I'll grab that pen tool again and put it back on black, and then just add in some shading here on underneath the eye and the cheeks little bit in the mouth there, so that the teeth look a little bit, creepier. Underneath the chin, the neck, and then on the sort of like weird like chest, that abs area. Yep, a little bit of that, and then that's pretty much done now. What I do now is I'll merge all of these layers down into one image. Now, I'll take the sprite sheet for my characters in RPG Maker, and I'll copy this, highlight it, copy it, paste it into here, and then drop it onto one of the existing little squares for characters there. Again, I'm only doing one frame of the animation right now, just for simplicity's sake, but I am intending to work on some more animation for this. But as you can see, it's quite a time-consuming process, so, working on it to that extent would be, something in the future. So this is what would essentially be one of the first maps of the game. This is just where I'm testing a few things out at the moment. So I kind of lost the image here, so like what I just do is just gotta find it quickly again, because again, a lot of experimentation, you often lose what you're working on sometimes. But yeah, I found it now. Pop that into there. We get the little snake guy. Put him on down. And then what we have now, what I'm going to copy is that. So it's using the MV3D by Qt Virus. It's a plugin for RPG Maker 3D for RPG Maker 3 to make things RPG Maker MV to make things 3D. I got that in the end. And just that's the parameters. I had them on screen a second ago, and that's like basically for the scaling. So scaling and lighting, and the shape of the image and that kind of stuff, and the positioning of it. You can see here like a lot of different things that I've put in here. You can see it changes into a different character if you look at it from a different angle. I'm just going to change the scale on that to make it bigger. Change from 0.1 to 0.3. So it's essentially 3 times bigger than it was. And then we can see how that looks. Yeah, I think I like it bigger, better as a bigger creature. There we go. So that is essentially how that would look as a static image of some kind of monstrous creature. Yeah, so we're working on those. And then if I add in a little bit of basic AI, just the approach, make it a bit faster, more frequent, and we can see what it looks like if it's basically going to chase after you, run after you. Okay, the animation's a bit weird because what I've done is I need to take off the walking so that it doesn't flash the animation. Again, I'll work on the animation frames at a later date, but for now, I think this is a good starting position. See, it changes from directions as well. There we go. We have this creature chasing you through this 3D environment. So that's basically how I do that. And, I think there is some potential there. Just going to work on that. Here's another creature that I have actually put some more animation frames onto, so you can see a little bit of that. And just to wrap this up, we'll just run around and have a little look at some of the other things I've put into this map here. Just a quick peek. So again, this is very early days of what I'm working on here, but I'm quite proud of what I've put together so far. And here we have a building of some kind. Thank you very much. That'll be the end. Goodbye. Good evening, Spice Tube. Today, I want to try something a little bit simple, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, which is to make a spinning object in my 3D first-person RPG Maker game. As is always the case on the hellscape that is YouTube in 2025, if you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is the 7th video in the series, so I hope you've checked out the previous ones, discussing subjects like how I got the first-person camera, and why I'm using RPG Maker to make this game. By using a plugin command from the 3D plugin, I can update certain attributes of the event in real time, specifically the rotation of the object. To make this work, I set up a parallel process that targets the object I want to spin, and then I simply update its rotation by 10 degrees each time, with a small wait in between. After repeating this for 36 steps, I've created a full 360 degree rotation. There might be a simpler way to do this, but this is how I figured it out. As you can see in the playtest, the object floats and spins smoothly. I'm planning to use this effect for a few collectible items because I really think it makes them stand out. I think it adds a nice touch, especially if I place it in an area where the players can't reach on the first time through. It creates a memorable moment that I hope will make you want to come back later with the right mindset to be able to collect it. So that's how I created the spinning object. I think it's really simple but really effective. So I want to show off another object here, using a different shape of object this time.
creates this just a bit different and weird glowing sort of totem thing with the 8 cross object shape. I'm going to show you the note tags of how I've achieved this effect in a second, but I think this is quite an effective little creepy effect for animation. So in the events notes, you've got MV3D and then lamp, which is what makes it glow green. That's the shadow casting and the intensity of it with the numbers there. The scale, again, is the size of it, I mentioned this before, and the shape is an 8 cross, which is the shape that it gets propped up in. And one last thing to test today, which is basically using it on a sort of monster sprite type thing. I think this is a really creepy effect here. Quite like how this looks. So something to work with here. This is a bit more progress for today. Thank you. This is a very short one today, but if you liked it, please comment, like, subscribe, and let me know. Thank you. Good evening, Sharptooth. So today I want to go through the process of making this 3D creature in RPG Maker. So previously I made some videos describing how I got the camera angle and how I created this 3D spinning object. Today I specifically want to talk about how I make this monster that will chase you. It has AI based on switches. So I'm starting off by creating the creature itself. I made these like tentacles, and then I've created this sort of biblically accurate angel type thing with the body and the arms next. Cut that out and colorize, create layers as I always do. And then shadows and the texture as well. So we create multiple layers here with an opaque layer. Each part of the body is a separate image, and that's so that I can create a bit of animation later by just moving the layers around. But I want to say, if you do enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe. It really will inspire me to carry on and make more content for you guys. Thank you very much. So now we add the legs, cut these out, and again we cut those out and create another layer and paste those in behind. So my idea with this creature is to make the most of the 3D effect that I can achieve by having the item spin. So I figured the tentacles would create this like uncanny weird shape. That's the idea that I'm going for here. I think this is the best way of achieving a sort of 3D object out of a 2D image. So we go around the hands now and again add layers, the nails to be white. You can see I've also done the eyes and other highlights in different colours. I've done nice red to sort of make it look like bloody almost. And then again, these are all in separate pieces so that I can create animations out of them in a bit. I wanted to sort of make the creature look maybe like furry almost, with their sort of pixelated texture on it. So now I'm going to cut ahead to exporting these, just create the images. Creating each frame with a little bit of rotation on each of the hands, and then just moving around like the images rotate the entire piece of like the tentacles. And then from there we create the second and third frames for the animation, and I'll put those onto RPG Maker. So now I'm going to play test. This is skips ahead a bit. I'm going to start off just by using the same object that I used before for the previous video where I was doing the 3D spinning object. And I quite like the effect this creates. I think it's very effective, but simple but effective. And the shadows and stuff that create quite a nice creepy silhouette there. So as you'll see, what happens is, as you pass through this end of the corridor, a message will come up on screen, which is, the monster has seen you. And then when you reach the end of the corridor, you can see it can hit you now. You are safe, and the monster will no longer chase you. Let's just show off the monster chasing you again from this end of the corridor. Yeah. You can also see that it actually does reduce the health of the player each time they get hit. That little meter in the top left-hand corner is a placeholder that will be removed in actual gameplay. This is my test map, so there's a lot of processes going on here, so a lot of frame drops might happen. Might be related to the fact that I've got a lot of random things being tested on this screen. So here's how it works. First, we have when the switch monster chase is switched on, the creature will approach and it plays that event, which basically damages the player, plays a sound, and knocks the player back. When you touch this switch, it creates this event, parallel process, show the monster has seen new image, wait 180 frames for 3 seconds, essentially. And then we have another one here which switches off the monster chase switch and it turns on the end chase switch. And the third parallel process over here, which is shows the you are safe image. So we'll go for another playtest of that now. You can see you pass that image, the monster has seen you, and the monster will chase you until you pass the next trigger, which switches off that event. Essentially, this creates two sets of AI essentially for the creature. Like it will either roam randomly, or it will chase you. What I want to show now is essentially just testing it out in different environments. So you can see here that if you hop over this small gap, obviously the creature isn't able to follow you. That's essentially just literally just a gap that the player jumps over using the move command. Player move route and then jump over this little gap, and the creature is not able to follow over. Obviously, there's a lot of tweaking of the animation and stuff to make things look a little bit better. But quite happy with where we are at the moment. You can see the creature keeps spinning. So now I'm showing it using a different shape of objects. This shape is called an X cross, whereas the previous one was called an 8 cross. It's basically more folds in the origami of it, essentially. Well, this one has less folds. And it creates a bit more of a flat object, but is still, obviously, with it that being, propped up in that way in the rotation of it. And I've left it so it will change to an 8 cross when it's chasing you, and then back to the 4 cross when it's not. So it's basically makes it look a little bit more intense and creepy when it's chasing you. Move back to the end of this corridor again, and if we trigger it to chase us one more time, and then here it comes. I've got it switched at the moment, so none of these hits will actually kill the player yet, but that is something that will be added soon. It does remove HP, and there is a HP system in place with like medical items and stuff. I did show that in a previous video. That was in making the menu. When I was making the menu, I showed off that little bit of mechanics. Yeah, quite like. I think lighting is going to be the next thing to work on. Because I don't want to illuminate the monster too much, but I think the environment needs to be a bit more lit up to show it better. Thank you. If you enjoyed this today, please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much. Good evening, YouTube. Today, I want to show you the process of making this musical puzzle inspired by Silent Hill. So the way this works is that you select the keys, and when you play the notes in the correct combination, currently it will spawn one of these giant pairs of feet, and we'll let you find a key. So today I'm going to talk about how that works, and I'm going to show you the method behind the madness of this. So let's start. First things first, the keyboard itself is just a graphic there that essentially just floats, just there for image's sake. But we have this event here in front of it
which is essentially, if the player is facing up, we execute the plugin command mv3d camera pitch 55. This tilts the camera downwards to look at the piano. Control variables, piano key select 1. This will become clear what this is for in a second. Piano code set to 0. And enable menu off. This makes it so that the player can't open the menu. My custom menu uses this switch here, which if it's on, will enable the player to open the menu. Then we show these 8 pictures. These 8 pictures are the black keys and the background, the first key, second key, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So if I was to show you those, black keys look something like this on their own. And then key 1, let's say each individual key on its own looks like this. So that first bit there, it essentially draws those. It draws it, waits 10 frames, and then piano on equals on. Now, the next step, we'll be using a common event. This common event here, piano on, when the switch piano on is switched on, so it activates the piano, we run these 2 common events on an auto run. So my understanding is it will run this once, and essentially this draws these 2 events, piano interact and piano highlight. Under piano interact, we essentially have if button right is pressed down, if the piano key selected is less than 7, it will add 1 to the variable. If left is pressed down and the key is greater than 1, not equal to 1, so not equal to 7, not equal to 1, it will remove 1 from that variable. So essentially the variable starts on 1, which highlights the first key. You'll see here under piano highlight. So this essentially takes its information from that variable. If piano key selected equals 1, tint picture 1 to this color and wait 1 frame. Same thing for key 2. If the key, this is if the key is selected, so if it's highlighted. Again, we use the interact button here, right and left, to highlight each key, and that variable determines which of the keys is highlighted. Then, if OK under this if branch here, we have if button OK is pressed down. So if the button is pressed down, we'll play a sound effect, and here is how the puzzle essentially works. So each of the keys, I've given them a different prime number: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 19, 23. So we also, some of them multiply, some of them divide, and some of them just add numbers. Essentially what I believe this would do is make it so that you end up with a pretty unique code by the end of it. So just to test what we've got so far, I'll show you how that all comes together. So what you'll see is, first things first, we approach the keyboard, push the action button, the camera tilts down to look at it, and we have these buttons here. Now if I open the debug menu, you'll be able to see piano code is 0 currently, key selected 2. But if we were to say, push a couple of the keys, and check again, piano code is currently 5. So, let's say that I wanted to say, exit that, and go back into it again, and the piano code is now set back to 0. So let's say I wanted the code to be this key, this key, this key, this key, this key. Then the code I'll be looking for would be 38. So, back on the common event here, I put this one under the highlight part of it. Under the control part. So the piano controller is a parallel process that activates when this is on. It essentially, if piano on is on, it waits for a cancel, press the button, to erase all of the pictures, wait 10 frames, and turn off all these switches, pitch the camera back up to 90 degrees, and enable the menu again. So essentially it's the reverse of that first event. And essentially this this allows you to back out of the keys if you don't type anything. But also as part of this event here, if piano code equals 100 and 142, essentially I can put in different codes here. So I'm going to have 7 different codes that will be played with different things, and we'll give you a different key. So just try one for now. Actually, I'm pretty sure if you look closely enough at the information in those event screens, you'll be able to see what the solutions to these puzzles are. I'm just going to try the 2 of them for now. So let's do this one. Oh, that's the wrong buttons. So, of course, I already know what the solutions are. So that's correct, as it says correct. We'll remove that. Seem to have missed something there. Just to double check this again, let's see what went wrong there. So that should have set this to 100. It did come up with correct. Piano on off. Oh, I see. What I need is to include this one here. While I'm also at it, I might as well just make these guys. So MV3D scale to 0.3. Let's just make these a little bit more manageable. Actually, let's do this that way. Okay. And we'll also put it into the other one as well, just for the sake of that. So these will spawn when the password is done correctly. So let's just try that again. So this will be the final little run through today. I hope you found this interesting. If you have, please like, comment and subscribe, as I am currently making a first-person survival horror game using RPG Maker here. I've made videos about how I got the first-person camera angle, why I'm using RPG Maker. I'm not sure why the scale command didn't work properly there, but that's fine. Anyway, Wolfkey was found and he vanishes. And yeah, so that should be all of that. Thank you very much. The next thing I'm going to do will probably be something to do with lighting, maybe something about my process of drawings coming to life in these different softwares. But either way, hope you're enjoying this, and thank you very much. Goodbye.
Good afternoon, Scott's Tube. And today I want to share with you a bunch of different lighting effects that I've been using in my first-person survival horror game being made in RPG Maker. I've previously made videos describing why I'm using RPG Maker and how I got the first-person camera angle, as well as making a bunch of different objects. Today, lighting is going to be the main agenda, and I'm going to test out a bunch of different effects, like being able to change the lighting on the fly to create different colours and different intensities of light for different shadows, and to create a moving light source, as well as to illuminate different types of objects to make them stand out against the background. Okay, so the first effect I want to show you guys today, this light that grows more intense and then shuts off. These ones that change colour and bleed into the nearby environment. We also have a flashlight effect, which illuminates things as we get closer. And then over here we also have a moving light source moving up and down the corridor here. So I'm going to talk about all of these one at a time and talk about how they work and potential uses for how I may use that. So let's start with this one here. So as you can see, it's essentially got 3 steps. Step 1 is there, so it becomes step 2 but more powerful, and step 3 it switches off. So step 1, 2, and then step 3. So let's talk about how that works. The object itself is created using these note tags. That's not too important right now. What is important is we have this parallel process. Targets the event number, so that's event number 71. So event number 71. Again, this is my test map, so there's a lot of events on this page. In actual gameplay, I intend to make much less number of events on each screen. So, 3 stages. First, we have the plugin command mv3d, target event number 71, and configure lamp to be white. This 0.7 is the intensity of the light. The 5 is the distance that the light will travel. So we wait 60 frames, which is essentially 1 second, and then at 71, configure lamp black, so it just switches it off. And then the third step, which is 0.3, white, so a slightly less intense light. So we have basically an intense light, no light, a less intense light, and it cycles each step 1 second. An interesting thing about this one is the actual light source itself is currently actually off the map, so you can't see the actual sprite for the light source, but the light itself bleeds into the map, so essentially we're able to create a light which is spawned off screen, which creates quite an interesting effect, I think. Next I'm going to talk about the flashlight, and the way that works is actually fairly simple. So the way I'm controlling the flashlight is essentially for a common event. At some point during the game, I want the power to be put back on again, and then it wouldn't run this bit. So if power is on, it won't do this bit, but if it else, see we have here this plugin command, light, and then you choose a color for the light, and the sun attribute. These two here will configure essentially the ambient light of the map. And then here, at P targets the player, so the player is the source of it. With a flashlight, literally just the word flashlight will make this work. That's the color of the light, and then that's the intensity of it, or the distance it will travel. And it's as simple as that. Just adding in this line here will create the flashlight. The next thing we'll look at will be these TV screens that change color. So again, these use a parallel process, MV3D, at target number 27, configure lamp, green, red, white, with a 60 frame wait in between. Just next to that, there's another one, targeting event number 26, which cycles through the same colors. So we can see how that works now. So as you can see, the TV screens essentially change color, and the light from that bleeds into the environment around them. Again, I think this is a very simple but very effective little visual trick here. And again, as you can see, that effect bleeds on to the area around it. Okay, I'm moving on to our fourth lighting effect that I'll be showing off today, with the moving light. Now you might already be able to have guessed how this one is working. Similar thing, in the note tag, in the notes for the event, we have this lamp command here. And it's as simple as just creating a move route, because the light here will follow the event. So simply having it move right 7 steps and back left 7 steps. I think this one might be my favourite of these little effects. Again, really simple, but I think this one is quite effective as well. So we see it moving up and down the corridor. I had to experiment with different sprites, different shapes to make this look better. But as you can see, it moves up and down the corridor, illuminating the corridor. Thank you everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this today, and I hope this will be helpful to some people. And if not, I hope this little sneak into the game I'm working on will get some people excited to want to see some more. So thank you. Please comment, like, subscribe if any of this is of interest to you, and I'll have some more content for you guys soon. I know it's very early days for this, but I've made a Patreon, guys, and anyone who signs up in the first month will be given the opportunity to include a personal message in the game. So that'll be as simple as anybody who signs up in the first month up until the 23rd of April will be given the opportunity to include a message in the game. Thank you very much, guys. Hope to see you on the next one.